Well, good afternoon, folks. My name is Fred Stoss. I'm a librarian at the State University of New York at the University of Buffalo. Um, and I'm the moderator for this session that we're having here. And I would like to introduce our speaker, Deborah Bauder, who's currently a resident librarian at the SUNY Oswego Penfield Library. She previously worked as an adjunct reference librarian at Onondaga Community College and as a reference assistant at Syracuse University Special Collections Research Center. So Deborah, the floor is yours, and we will take questions if they crop up. I will be monitoring the Q&A box. So if you have a question, Deborah said she would be more than happy to address those during her presentation. But make sure that you put them in the Q&A box. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Glad you all made it in the afternoon. Sometimes these afternoon sessions are tough to make it to. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right. Hopefully you can see that. Can you all see that? Fred, can you see that?
I can see it.
All right, we're off. Okay, so you've made it to Party Partners, Taking Reference Services in a New Direction. Fred already gave me my introduction. I am the resident librarian at Penfield. What I'm going to be talking about. So I probably should have polled you before we started because I am kind of curious how many people have heard of research parties. They are not my idea or our idea. We're building upon somebody else's idea, which I'll talk about in a moment. So I will be talking about what they are, how we are doing them at Penfield Library, including planning, marketing, hosting, assessment. I will also talk about the impacts and the benefits, and then the challenges and opportunities that we see with them. And of course, how we are moving forward in the virtual environment at this point. Given everything that's been going on lately, that's hugely important. So before I do that, let me give you a little bit of context here of who we are at Oswego and Penfield, and then we'll get into what we're doing. So Oswego, hopefully some of you have been able to make it up here. We're right on the shores of Lake Ontario. We have about 7,000 undergrads, around 1,000 grads. We've got lots of undergrad majors and minors. About 89% of our students receive financial aid, and not quite a third of our students are from culturally diverse backgrounds. The library itself, Penfield Library, has been undergoing a lot of changes lately, a lot of staffing changes and retirements and all kinds of stuff. So we are currently at 11 full-time librarians. I think that may be changing soon to 10, I'm not sure. So we have some openings that are happening now. We also have 15 professional staff and clerks who are awesome. And we have, of course, our all-important student workers. And I decided to include this. This is something that we posted. We created one for each librarian at Penfield, and we posted this on our Facebook page. So I have been at SUNY Oswego for 2 years, and I'm just starting into my 3rd year. I'm the liaison for psychology and human development, and I do a lot of the general research as well, general research questions, and some copyright, some Creative Commons. Okay, so let's talk about what research parties are. Some of you, as I said, probably are familiar with them. Research parties are really sort of the research help desk redefined. They're a drop-in consultation space for our students to meet with librarians. We have writing center tutors there as well. And it's really a relaxed and fun atmosphere. It's very social, it's very collaborative. We want students to drop in, feel this sort of low pressure, have some fun, have some food. We do bribe them with pizza and chocolate. We all know students can be bribed with food. So however we can get them there, we'll get them there. There are multiple librarians and writing center tutors, circulating the room, answering questions and assisting students with their various and assorted research needs, whether that's citations or finding a book, We encourage students to come regardless of the depth of their question. This picture on the screen here is from I think this is the the research party that we had. So this was in the fall. So you can see the type of vibe we have. Everybody's got pizza. There's 3 students there. There's a couple librarians, and actually the Writing Center director came to that one. And it's really just, the creation of this collegial atmosphere. And it's a lot of fun, actually. It really is a lot of fun. They're rooted in the concept of social learning theory and peer learning theory, where students are engaged. Student engagement and retention are increased when they work in a collaborative environment where they can observe and learn from one another. The interactions are very much, you can see even in this picture, students are looking on as you're talking with other people and making comments. I actually learn a lot myself from the students just by being there. They are also an opportunity really as librarians to get a pulse of where the students are at, sort of on their own turf. I know, as librarians, we think of we feel this sense of ownership of the library, but, the students, when you're out on the floors and in the classrooms, I think they really feel like it's theirs. And so when they're just sitting there at tables and talking with each other, and you kind of pop down with a piece of pizza and sit with them, it creates this lessening of the hierarchy, I guess is a good way to put it. So you can get a good feel of how and where they're searching, and just talk with them, find out what their projects are, what they're working on. So they're really fun. As I said, I really like them a lot. We are expanding on an idea. This is not our original idea. So librarians at the Research and Instructional Services at the University of Pennsylvania's Van Pelt Library conceived of the idea for research parties in spring of 2013. And then they've been obviously doing them since then. And then I went to an ACRL presentation in Cleveland last year and saw them do a presentation there and just thought it was a really great idea. So we brought it back with us and turned it into our own. So the goals and the reasons why we're doing this, because of course it's always good to be really clear on what your goals are. We want to promote the students' use and understanding of Penfield's library resources. It's great to have them, but unless they come in and make use of what we have, they're not much use. So we want students to come in. So this kind of promotes, it gives them another venue to make use of the library. We also really want to foster students' familiarity and engagement with the librarians as a resource, sort of removing the barriers to access. Some students still might not feel comfortable approaching after an information literacy session or coming up to the desk, which can be sort of intimidating for some people. So, they come in, they see librarians are people that are there to help them. It sort of removes that barrier. It also encourages an atmosphere of scholarly collaboration and community, which we really want to promote. Fostering that atmosphere of collegiality, I think, is hugely important. It's getting the students to see themselves as scholars. And in general, we want to encourage the students to be interested and receptive in seeking out research help at the library, to sort of see that that's an option for them. And the last thing that we had as a goal was to build campus partnerships with the library. So we currently, when we initially conceived of it, it was just a library thing, and we are building partners with EOP offices and also with the Office of Learning Services, which has the Writing Center. So we decided to work together with the Writing Center, and we have student tutors come. So in addition to librarians circulating the room, we also have tutors who are there, so we're all working together and pooling the talent and the resources of everything we got going on to benefit the students. So it's nice to build those partnerships as well. So when we started thinking about planning and developing our research parties, there was a lot to consider. So as I said, I went to the ACRL presentation in the spring of last year, thought it was a great idea, came back and started talking to a couple people. And then we just got together, formed a little committee. I think there are 4 or 5 people on the committee. And then we started over the summer working on our research and planning. So did a lot of reading, did a bit of a literature review. If you just even Google research parties, honestly, there's stuff published by the originators of the idea as well, of how they're doing it. And that was sort of our jumping off point to making it our own. We also spent time solidifying the goals and vision that I just told you about, really thinking about what parts of it we want to take from that general idea to make it our own. We also drafted the proposal, got the director's consent, of course, getting funds, thinking about how much money this is going to cost, and getting the librarians to buy in on the idea, because of course, librarians need to be there. So it's time for the librarians to be there. Always a challenge when everybody's crunched for time and overworked, but I think people have really seem to find it beneficial. We also figured out due dates of major assignments so that we could coordinate the dates that we scheduled the research parties with due dates of major assignments, particularly for some of those big classes like bio and English 102, and we have Communication 211 for our business students. They're just sort of huge classes. So we made sure to coordinate with those due dates. And then we did sort of just the logistical stuff you have to do of, picking the dates, reserving the rooms, coordinating the food purchase. We worked with the Writing Center director and the Student Center, student tutors on the staffing. We also emailed the faculty across campus and developed a marketing plan. And one thing I want to really stress here as part of the planning is working, picking those due dates and working with the faculty from the English department and the writing program and communication. If you can get faculty to offer extra credit to come, even if it's a very minimal amount, it's an added incentive for the students. It's sort of, however you can get them there. Once they're there, they get so much out of it, but you got to get them there. So that's always the challenge. So I think for us, working with the faculty across campus is hugely important and helps with attendance.
Deborah, we have a question. A person would like to know, how cool. Do these parties take place in the area near the reference desk or in a separate, more private, removed space in the library? I know just logistically.
Yeah, so they really are cool. They're really fun. So they take place, we've been doing them upstairs. We're 3 floors on the library. So we've been doing them on the 2nd floor. We have a really big classroom that's sort of like a double classroom. So we did a couple of them in there, and then we did another one when that classroom was booked on a date that we really wanted to use. We actually just did it in a corner of the library. We pulled together some tables and just made it happen in the corner of the library, just in the stacks. And that seemed to work well also. So we did it both ways. Is there another question?
Yeah, there are several that are coming in now. Could a research party be done in collaboration with a local public library?
It's a good question. I mean, I kind of think sky's the limit, really. It's for us, what we did is just, took the idea and kind of ran with it and thought about our student body and what our students would like. But I don't see why not. I think, the more people you bring in, the more interesting it's going to be too. So
I would ask sort of like a corollary to that question is, would it be possible for like say AP students to work with some of the people in your education departments that are looking to become teachers in a particular field?
That's a really cool idea. I'm going to write that down. I like that idea. Yeah. I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, I think as long as, again, it's to a certain extent, it's the librarian manpower to sort of have time to coordinate this stuff. But absolutely, I mean, that's a great idea, because we do actually have a school of education. So yeah.
The questions are coming in. Did you find a day and a time that seemed to work well?
We did them in the evenings. So we did virtual, which I'll talk about in a minute, but the in-person ones, we did them all from 6 to 8 p.m. So it was like early enough, but late enough. And it was at dinner time. So then we had the pizzas there, and the students sort of were able to come after they had their classes done for the day and just they were still kind of in that mode before they went home and, you know, did whatever they were doing for the rest of the evening. So it was kind of a sweet spot for us, I think, was the 6 to 8 p.m. time slot. But we did some virtual ones at different times during the day.
Did you do them on weekends?
We did not do them on weekends. Nope.
And the last question that I have, well, maybe not the last question they have so far. Do students just drop by, or do they need to sign up / RSVP so that you know how much food to have on hand?
Yeah, that's always tough because there's never enough pizza no matter how much you order. And of course, budgets are always a consideration. So the students do just drop by. For the live ones, we just, you know, make sure we tell everybody and advertise it everywhere. And the students they just come. So it is a little scary because you're sitting there in this empty room with pizza and everything and, you know, hoping that they're going to come. And we've had good luck with them actually coming. So, yeah, the Zoom ones, the virtual ones that we did sort of 2 ways, which I'll talk about in a minute in terms of having students sign up.
Yeah. There was just an observation that said it will be challenging to prepare these parties in these challenging times.
Correct. Yes. I'll talk about some ideas in a minute I have for that and sort of what we've done so far virtually. So let me talk a little bit about our marketing here. So you can see a sample marketing flyer that we did. The language is fun. There's balloons, there's pizza. You know, we really are kind of stressing that this is a collegial fun atmosphere, stressing that it's like a party where they can get help. So really kind of removing that intimidation factor I think sometimes students have of approaching the desk for one-on-one assistance and just feeling like it's this very serious thing, research, you know, it's just like we're trying to sort of change that vibe a little bit. We printed flyers and put them in the dorms and around campus. We made announcements on our social media. We all promoted them during our library instruction sessions and at the research help desk. Anytime I did help somebody, I'd be like, hey, don't forget to come. Or even just when you're working at the research help desk, you know, students that you see regularly, you know, encouraging them to come, encouraging them to bring their friends. So that sort of relationship development is really important too. And asking the faculty in our liaison areas to announce in their classes is huge. So again, that's a big one. If you can get the faculty to tie in, we have one English professor specifically who I've taught a lot of information literacy classes for him and have a good working relationship with him, and he will offer his students extra credit if they come. And so that helps a lot. Once they're there, they love it. But again, it's that little incentive to get them to actually come. So this is the marketing we used for the in-person parties. And we have hosted parties, you know, so we've done them a couple different ways. We've done 3 in-person ones. We did 2 last fall and 1 this spring before everything happened. And then we did 3 virtual ones. And we did both targeted, we did general ones, and then we did targeted. So we did population specific. We did one for our EOP students. We did one for for our English 102 students, and we did a citation specific one. And those were all virtual actually. And then the in-person ones that we did were general, just come and get help with whatever. So we're still trying to work through some of this, how to do this in the virtual environment, but I'll talk a little bit more about, you know, success or ideas that we've had. So you can see these are a couple more pictures from our gatherings, and we really had really good turnout, much more than I was expecting, honestly. In October, we had 35 students come, and we answered 20 reference questions. We do keep track of the reference questions in our Gimlet, or I don't know what other systems people use. You know, we had 3 writing center tutors, a couple librarians, actually 5 librarians, 35 students at the first one. The next one in November, we had 27 students. We answered more than 18 reference center questions. And then the last one in March, the latest one we actually had 38 students. The students really like them. And so you think about each one of those in-person parties was 2 hours long. So that's 6 hours total. And we answered like 58 reference questions. So you think about, that's a really good use of time in terms of, you know, certainly spending 6 hours at the research help desk, you're not going to get 58 questions answered. So it's a good, you know, we feel like it's a good use of our time in terms of assisting the students and helping them to get their research done. Did I see another question pop up?
Let's go down here and see. Yeah, we have a couple have come in. What's the best way that you found to advertise this activity?
So, you know, we just tried to get it everywhere. So we have electronic signage across campus. And it's like screens all over campus. So I made sure to send that in. So it was in the rotation for a few days prior so that the students, just if they're walking by it, they might happen to see it. The dorms, I think a lot of people saw just because they're in there a lot. But also really, again, the faculty, getting those faculty to announce it in their classes, I think was probably the best way to market it, honestly.
And well, there's one here that you've already answered. This is what was your attendance like, has been like. And another one that just came in is, how did you tally questions in the moment? I imagine it gets hectic.
It does. It does. So everybody did it kind of differently. The librarians that were there, I actually created just like, I had a piece of paper with me and I would just quickly write down like a couple notes about it. And then I did it at the end because I didn't want to spend time tracking reference questions. I wanted to spend time answering them. So I just had a piece of paper and a notebook and I would just be like, okay, that was an English 102 students that needed help with their MLA citations. It took about 5 minutes. And then, you know, I would just sort of write like that. This was a COM 211 student. They needed help with their, you know, researching Nestle company. And here's what I did roughly, you know, and it was just enough to kind of tickle my brain for later when I went back. So that's what worked for me. I think some people did just, you know, take a minute in between each interaction to do it in the system. But I just found it easier to do it at the end, because it does get pretty hectic and you don't want to stop, particularly if you're sitting with a group of students and then, you know, right away somebody else is like, oh, can I chime in? I have a question. So you don't want to stop in that moment and sort of break that, you know, scholarly conversation to write down what you're doing. You want to just do it. So yeah, I just found a good old pen and paper worked the best. And actually, so here's a little more information too that might be helpful. So hosting in person, we just put the sign-up sheet at the door so you can see I actually put a screenshot of the sign-up sheet, collected just a little bit of information, you know, if they're undergrad or grad, how'd they hear about it, and if they're there for extra credit, you know, the class that they're there for extra credit for and the professor, because I do email them at the end and say these are the students that came for extra credit. So we have that sign-up sheet at the door. We have the table with the pizza and the snacks not near the door because we don't want the students to come in and, you know, sort of grab and go, which of course, you know, it's human nature. They smell pizza, they're sort of lured in, and then they don't necessarily want to, they're in somewhere else in the library. And I'm always like, you can come in, but you know, you got to come in and hang out with us and talk to us. So we ended up hiring a student worker to kind of staff that sign-in sheet and orient attendees to sort of welcome them in, get a piece of pizza, and just keep an eye on the pizza so that people weren't grabbing like 4 slices at a time or leaving. We have peer reference assistants at the research help desk, so I hired one of them to do that. And again, we have librarians circulating the room. I was generally keeping an eye on the whole of the room and just directing students to other available librarians, and also the writing centers, tutors. We had, you know, laptops that I'd reserved, 5 or 6 laptops I always brought up with me. And then just other research supplies, handouts, citation handouts, pens, that kind of stuff. And it's just really important to like maintain that fun, informal vibe. And just like the more fun you're having, you know, the more fun it is really for them too.
Oh, well, to counter that, we have a question that from, not to be a Debbie Downer, I'm playing the devil's advocate, but have you at Penfield or heard from anywhere else a conflict/roadblock with tutoring centers that put on their own citation workshop and in a sense of want a monopoly on that?
We didn't really have any conflict with that. I just, I met with the Writing Center director, and we talked a lot about, what types of stuff the tutors were going to be able to, the Writing Center tutors were going to be able to do versus what the librarians were going to do. And we do try to direct the students if it's just straight up, they need some assistance with writing. I'd be like, hey, can you come over and help the student? So no, I think the relationship building is really key. I think as long as you're all on the same page, which we all want the same things, is the students to succeed. So the more we can, all share what we know, and I think as long as we're all on the same page, we haven't had any challenges with that. I don't know about other colleges. We're sort of trying to, I think we are building partners with a couple of other offices, among them the Writing Center. And so for us, I think we're really working on sort of removing those types of silos so that we can help each other and pool our expertise. So it's been good so far.
And the most recent question that we have is, did students stay for the entire 2 hours?
No, they sort of trickle in and out. Some of them did, surprisingly, some would just like come in, right at the 6 o'clock hour, grab some pizza, and they'd be there the whole time. Just working. And that was great too, because it wasn't always about a librarian walking over necessarily. I mean, sometimes I was like, are you guys all set? You need help? And they'd be like, we're good, and, I think just even promoting that collegial vibe is important, and just making them feel like they're scholars and recognizing their skills and that we're there to help them. So, I mean, some leave, they just come in for 20 minutes, they've clearly they want a piece of pizza and they want to ask a couple questions, and that's fine too. I think any opportunity you have to build goodwill with students, I think is important, and get them to come to the library. Oh, was there another question?
I think that's it. Let me just check again. Okay. Do you provide laptops for the students to use?
Most of the students bring their own. We do, we have laptops for checkout at the front. So I usually reserve down at the front desk of the library. So I usually will reserve like a small cart of like 5 or 6 of them and bring them up just in case for the students who don't have laptops. And they do get used. So it's a mix, but most of them seem to have them. Okay, so hosting virtually. We did 3 of those as well. We did that through Zoom. We tried a few different things because it was right when the coronavirus first started and everyone was home. So we weren't sure what was going to happen. And, we were all just kind of learning on our feet as well. So it went pretty well. I mean, we had one for EOP students. It was right after we closed and none of the students came. It really wasn't advertised well enough, and nobody came. But it was a good opportunity to kind of just the librarians that were there to work out some logistics of how Zoom worked too. So the next one, we had one for English 102 students, and we had 13 students come virtually. That one, we started advertising at the in-person one in March, so more students knew about it, and the professor also announced it in his virtual classes. So I think that the students were aware of that one more. And yeah, we had a good turnout for that one. In that one, there was the librarians, the way we sort of structured it was we had a waiting room. The students would come in. I would be there chatting, talking, sort of, it is difficult to create that party atmosphere, that sort of fun atmosphere. So I really made an extra effort to just kind of connect with them, even if it was for 30 seconds, and just say, hey, what are you working on? What's going on? How's everything going? And then before I would pass them on to the librarians. So the librarians were in breakout rooms. And then I would say, okay, I'm going to put you in with Karen. She's great at this. She's going to help you with whatever you're working on. So pass them off to the librarians in the breakout rooms. They were hanging out. And then when some students would return to the main room afterwards and kind of chat with me again. We're still thinking on other ways to make it better, but it was still, I consider 13 students okay. We did one that was citation specific as well, and we had just like 4 or 5 students come to that. but they made a point of coming back in the room and just saying that was really helpful. So I think there's a lot of room for growth in the virtual environment. Assessment. So let me talk for a minute about assessment. What we did was, let me get to the right spot here. So we tracked reference transactions, as I mentioned. We tracked attendee numbers on the sign-in sheet. We solicited feedback at each party from the student attendees and the Writing Center tutors. Got a lot of really good feedback. Up in the right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see this is, I just printed it out on a little half slip of paper and would just sort of hand it to people. It was easy to forget to do, but we had enough of them that we did hand out that we got some great feedback. You know, just asking them what they found the most helpful and any comments or suggestions, and would they recommend it to their friends. We tried to keep it short so they would actually fill it out, and got great feedback, things that I, you know, hadn't really thought about. One student was like, could you put it in a different room with more plugs? And I was like, okay, yeah, well, we got to work on that. And, you know, things like, can you have healthy snacks? So the next one I brought a bag of clementines, you know, and that seemed to do the trick. So just, you know, listening to what they liked and what was useful to them. We also got unsolicited feedback from faculty across the campus and several faculty attendees. We had professors who came to these as well, and the students really seemed to like that. I think just seeing their professors in this informal environment as well. And as I said, the feedback from the attendees help us to make improvements that I think were really useful. For virtual parties, I'm considering doing an online, like an exit poll, maybe similar to, with, you know, similar questions to this. We attract attendee numbers. We did, of course, track our reference transactions, and we got unsolicited feedback from, you know, students who would pop back in the room and say that was really great, thank you. So I'm still working on how to improve our assessment in the virtual environment. So thinking about impact and benefits, I think, you know, there's quite a few. I put some quotes here that I just thought were sort of indicative of some of the positive response that we had. My favorite is actually just that one of the students says, I felt comfortable asking for help, because I think that is kind of one of the main goals, is just removing that barrier. So for the student attendees, you know, the awareness of the library resources is just getting them to come in. And seeing librarians as a resource, I think, and making them see us as people who are going to sit there and have a piece of pizza with them and be human. So I think it's that awareness that's super important. And of course, the assistance with getting their research and their assignments done. I think a lot of them really got good stuff done. And when there'd be 3 or 4 students from the same class, you could sit with all 3 or 4 of them, and you know, they would listen to each other and listen to me, and you know, that sort of combination of getting their assignments done and being with each other was useful. And they also, of course, they're developing their research skills. That's always a goal. We want them to become better students. We want them to have better research skills. So yeah, so that was a benefit for our student attendees. And then for us, of course, increased use of library resources and the librarians, building that relationship. I think the relationship building is always important. You know, the partnerships with other campus offices, in this case with the Writing Center, but then also with EOP, and then the promotion of that scholarly or collegial atmosphere are also benefits that we found.
Deborah, we've got a couple more questions that have come in.
Okay.
So there's one that actually sort of like you may have already addressed, but I'll read the question. It says, how did you market for the virtual research parties?
Yeah, that was tougher. So what we did was we have it's called Oswego Today, which is like an online newsletter that goes to all the students and everybody on campus every day. So I made sure that it was posted in there. I don't know how much the students actually read that, but you know, maybe a few of them might. And then also making sure that the faculty know. So I drafted an email for the liaison librarians to send out to the librarians in their areas, to the faculty in their areas, just saying, you know, hey, we've got this research party. Can you encourage your students to come? So again, it was about getting the faculty buy-in from across campus. So I'm looking for other ways as well, though certainly there's ways to do better, and I'm thinking about it. So it's a tough one when you're all virtual.
Yeah. Related to that, did the virtual sessions have writing tutors also, or just librarians?
Just librarians, but so far. But in the fall, you know, I think we're planning more of these, and I would definitely like to get the students involved again in doing that kind of peer mentoring. So I'm planning on having writing center tutors there as well, at least a couple of them, and also having our peer reference assistant be there with me to just to create that atmosphere in that main room. So yeah, that's to come. It hasn't happened yet, but that's on the list.
Okay, we've got a couple more here. It says, have you also considered working with RAs in the resident halls? I know Rs are always looking for programming options. They might be willing to buy the pizza too.
It's a good thought. I just wrote it down. That is on the list of that I'll talk about in a minute. Some ideas for, you know, ideas for moving forward, which is like maybe having them in the dorms or somehow getting that aspect more involved. So yeah, the RAs is a great idea.
Now here's a really interesting one that might be challenging for on the spot thinking. If qualify this with the word if our libraries are open this fall, do you see holding these in person? And what changes do you see making? And how would you see holding these socially distanced?
Yeah, that's tough. That's really tough. And I don't really have an answer. I think right now we're leaning towards doing more of the virtual until it's safe to kind of be together physically like that in such a space. Which then of course is the challenge of making that party-like atmosphere that the students like and the collegial atmosphere. So I'm thinking on that one. I think we all are how to do better with that, or how to do it safely.
Yeah, I was just checking in the chat. There's one person who made a suggestion that using Google Forms to help with the answers on putting them on a spreadsheet, just as a FYI or a refresher for emphasis. And I think there's another one here that might be related to if you're embedded in classes, announcement about parties is a possibility to advertise them through the department.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We're always working with our liaison areas, and I think we're working right now on our liaison model, so I'm not sure what it's going to be, but yeah, having those connections and in the classes, if you can get embedded in the classes like that, and yeah, so good ideas.
There was another chat observation here that said that SGA, your student government associations, might be a huge supporter of or an entity to help fund swag or food.
I like this. You guys are giving me great ideas.
That's collaboration through SUNY.
Yeah, it's great. It's great because we are, you know, trying to find ways to modify this and to make it better. And certainly funding is always a challenge, right? Because like the students want the good pizza too, which is the good pizza is there's a place here in town that just has the best pizza in the world. But of course, it's a little more expensive. So I always say when I'm promoting it, like, "Ooh, we got the good pizza coming." You know, but of course that's more expensive, so then it's like the funding issue. And no matter how much pizza I get, they always say more pizza, more pizza. That's always on the suggestion, one of the suggestions I get. So, you know, we're looking for ways to help fund swag and food. So that's a good idea. All right, so challenges. Obviously just getting students to attend is a challenge, you know, it's like, I openly admit that we use bribery. You know, we you know, lure them with food. We see if we can get the faculty to offer them extra credit, even if it's the most minuscule extra credit. It seems to be enough to get them to come. Also getting the librarian buy-in on the idea, because it is, librarian time. You need to have enough librarians there to make it useful. If you have 38 people there and there's 2 librarians, that's not going to be so helpful. People are going to be waiting around a lot. So, you need a good handful of librarians to be there. So just kind of talking it up. And as I've said a couple times already, the faculty buy-in across campus is absolutely key. Funding sources for food, as we were just talking about, is a challenge always. And also, as we've been talking about, how to make them better, particularly in the virtual environment. These are strange times. So I think trying to figure out how to do better is, virtually is always a challenge. Let's see, and opportunities going forward. So some of our ideas were hosting research parties in the dorms, doing more for the specific student population. So we did it for the EOP students, but it was right at the beginning, a very super stressful time and not advertised well enough. But also, international students, we have a veteran population, doing more with specific majors, hosting more class-specific sessions, like the English 102 one that was very successful. Some faculty have also mentioned or asked for, when they've heard about these, like, oh, would you host faculty-focused research parties, which I thought was really interesting. So some of the faculty seemed interested in the idea of kind of getting together with their colleagues and having librarians there to help them find sources. So we're thinking about that, and training our peer reference assistants that we have at the research help desk to help more at the research parties. And of course, as I've said several times, just making the virtual parties better. That's all I got. So thank you so much for coming. Are there any other questions?
We have no other questions. And I really like the idea of what you agreeing to put the questions in, because we now have, if anybody does want to engage in asking some more questions, we have about 5 minutes left that we would normally be devoted to this, but and giving everybody just a little bit more time to get to the next program. But Deborah, this was a really interesting thing. I have one question.
Sure.
I work at a large university, and I think that depending on student enrollments in departments, our introductory biology class, Bio 200, can have up to 3,500 students in it. And I would be, I was going to say something else about how scared I would be. I would be really, really frightened to post just to one class for fear that even if 10% of the class said that, oh, that sounds like a really great idea, of dealing with 350 students over how many different sessions per week. And with the fact is, we still don't know. I don't know what's happening at Oswego or other colleges and universities, but we have been asked to give various scenarios for doing something where we are only going to be working in the libraries if they open or may not open. That we would have a 50% presence on campus and a 50% presence at home. So the differences, I think, I think there's a dynamic that could be slightly different from doing this at a university as opposed to the college. But boy, I tell you, I really like I really like this idea.
Great. Yeah, it is. It's, it's always a challenge. And I think, just tailoring it to your specific student population. Our bio classes, we've talked about it too, they're also huge. They're not that big, but they are really huge. And how do you serve the students and not overwhelm the librarians? Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of potential.
I may have to come up to Oswego and try some of that pizza and
Cam's. It's right on Main Street. Oh, it's so good. Yeah, it's right in the main drag. It's really good.
The last time I'm up Oswego, I'm usually doing some salmon fishing up on some of the streams up there. Okay. Right. 2 questions left, if we could get to them quickly right now.
Sure.
I missed the very beginning of this, so you've already answered this, but what does the designation of resident librarian mean?
So, yeah, that's a good question. Someone told me that I was going to get asked that, and I should have put it in the explanation. I actually didn't explain it. So a resident librarian, I'm sort of about to transition out of that title, but a resident librarian, if you think of a residency, you know, so you have the training, but you still new to the profession. So I am new to this profession. So it's an opportunity to spend a lot of time with other librarians and have mentors, and have to do a lot of observing and that kind of stuff. So my first year that I was at Oswego, I was lucky enough to just spend a lot of time getting mentored and working on projects and sort of building up my skill set, building up my resume, building up my personal toolkit of how to be an instructor and how to.
Is that a tenure track position?
It's not. Nope.
Okay.
Nope. So that's my next goal.
Okay.
Getting a tenure track.
The next question that I hope that I haven't say, let's say this may be the last one. Have you thought about doing research parties for midterms or finals prep? And what about a senior project for a specific senior project?
Yeah, that's all good ideas. We did schedule some around the midterm dates. So I think the second one we did in the fall. So we tried to do it around when we knew the students were going to be doing a lot of research and working on their finals, but also coordinating it with when they were going to be back from Thanksgiving or leaving and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a juggling act to figure out when the best data is based on when assignments are due versus when the students are around. And yeah, so, but certainly, I mean, I like those ideas too. And I think right now we've only been doing 3 a semester, 2 or 3 a semester. So, I mean, this is pretty new for us. So there's room for growth, certainly.
Let me just check one more time here for questions. No open questions, nothing in chat. So Deborah, I want to say thank you ever so much for an extremely interesting program. I think you've given a lot of us a smorgasbord for food for thought. So I personally appreciate it and thank you. And good luck to everybody. And we don't have to tell people to be safe going back home after this year, but be safe anyway. I don't know if you can see my shirt. It says Radical Librarian. It says you get my borrowing history when you take it from my cold, dead hands.
Very nice.
So have a great one. And thanks, Deborah. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks everybody for coming.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.